My wife served me divorce papers at my retirement party, so I signed everything and watched her future collapse Reddit stories. She expected tears, outrage, maybe begging, but I handed her a calm smile she didn't understand until long after the ink dried. She never realized the house, the money, and the leverage she counted on had already slipped out of her hands months before. Hi, I'm Rick, 49, and at my retirement party my wife handed me divorce papers while my own daughter stood there clapping like she was at a graduation. I just smiled, signed everything without reading a word, and leaned in to whisper, "You have no idea what you just did to yourself." Her face went pale so fast it was almost worth the 19 years of marriage. Almost. Let me back up. I met Grace when I was 27. I was that guy with ink on his hands and a permanent smell of machine oil from working at Kellerman Printing. She was the cute receptionist at a dental office across town. Blonde bob, big smile, that soft, sweet, bubbly energy that makes guys like me think, "Wow, that's wife material," instead of, "Huh, that's a woman who will one day serve me paperwork at a sheet cake party." We dated for 2 years. It was fine. Normal. Movies, Olive Garden, cheap wine in my crappy apartment. She wasn't wild, she wasn't intense, she wasn't complicated. After a childhood with a dad who thought emotions were a government plot, and a mom who coped by rearranging the living room every 3 months, not complicated, sounded like a dream. My dad passed when I was 26 and left me a decent inheritance, nothing insane, but enough for a down payment on a house. Grace and I got married when I was 29. We bought a modest 3-bedroom place with a big old maple in the front yard and a driveway just long enough for me to complain about shoveling it in winter. Here's the important thing. That house went in my name only. Not because I was planning for divorce. Back then, my big financial strategy was, pay the bills and hope nothing breaks this month. My uncle, who did real estate, told me, "You inherited the down payment from your dad. For tax and inheritance reasons, put it in your name only." So we did the deed in my name. Grace didn't care. At the time, she was just excited about picking curtains. Year 1, Grace gets pregnant. We have our daughter, Tiffany. I'm working nights, changing diapers on 3 hours of sleep, and wondering if this is what being a grown-up feels like. Spoiler, yes. That's exactly what it feels like. For the first several years, it was textbook suburban family life. I worked at Kellerman Printing, starting as a press operator. Loud machines, the constant smell of solvent and hot paper, operators yelling over the noise, and some designers, urgent, catalog that needed to be printed yesterday because someone forgot to proof the last version. I put in the hours. Early mornings, late nights, holiday rushes. My hands were permanently stained with ink and my back sounded like bubble wrap every time I bent over. But we were stable. Grace stayed home with Tiffany until she started school, then picked up a part-time job at a craft supply store. 20 hours a week tops. It was one of those jobs where the biggest emergency was someone's coupon not scanning. Her paycheck went to decorations, scented candles, seasonal throw pillows, and whatever project she was into that month. I never made a big deal about it. I was raised old school. My dad worked, my mom did the home stuff, and even when my dad was a jerk, the bills got paid. I figured that's just how life worked. Somewhere around 3 years ago, the script changed. Grace started talking about her lost dreams. At first it was little comments. I always thought I'd do something creative, but I gave that up for the family. If I hadn't had to stay home with Tiffany, I could have had a career. Which was funny, because as far as I knew, her big plan before me was work at the front desk at the dentist's office and maybe get promoted to office manager. Then she got real close with this friend, Paige. Divorced, loud, the kind of woman who turns every girl's night into a TED Talk about how marriage is a prison and every husband is secretly trying to ruin your life. Grace started coming home with her head full of Paigeisms. Women give up everything. Men just coast. Alimony is justice. Meanwhile, Tiffany was turning into a miniature version of Grace with a Wi-Fi connection. At 16, she needed a car. Not wanted. Needed. I bought a used Mazda, titled it in my name, and let her treat it like it was her birthright. I paid for private high school because Grace said public school would ruin her future. Then there was the emergency credit card, which somehow had emergencies at the mall every single Saturday. I kept grinding at work. 20 years at Kellerman Printing. I went from the new guy on the line to production supervisor. That meant instead of just dealing with machines, I also got to deal with people, schedules, budgets, and execs who never set foot on the floor telling me we could, easily, cut 2 people and still hit deadlines. My alarm went off at 4:15 a.m. every weekday. I'd be at the plant by 5 o'clock. There's a special kind of tired that lives in your bones after a couple of decades of that. So when they threw me a retirement party, I thought, you know what, I've earned this. Nothing fancy. Just the break room. Fluorescent lights, plastic tablecloths, those big plastic tubs of potato salad that taste vaguely of refrigerator, and a sheet cake with "Happy Retirement, Rick" in blue frosting that stained everyone's teeth. But the room was packed. Guys from every shift. Press operators, bindery guys, even a few office folks who worked regular hours and felt brave showing up in the wild lands of second and third shift. My brother Neil came with his wife, Maria. A couple of our neighbors. My buddy Nolan, who I'd worked with on the binder line for 15 years, showed up with a 6-pack of some fancy craft soda like it was champagne. They hung one of those generic retirement banners with balloons on it. Somebody put up a collage of photos of me through the years. 21-year-old me with more hair and less belly, 30-year-old me holding baby Tiffany at a company picnic, 40-year-old me showing off a new press like it was a sports car. I was standing by the snack table, listening to Nolan tell me about this boat he just bought off Craigslist. Thing's a steal, man. Only needs a little work on the engine, he said, which is boat owner code for I bought a floating disaster, please validate my decisions. We're mid-argument about whether a Mercury outboard from the 90s is worth rebuilding when the room goes quiet. Not loud quiet. That weird, heavy, everyone's pretending they're not staring but they definitely are kind of quiet. I look toward the door. Grace walks in. Black dress. The expensive one she wears to weddings and anything she thinks might end up on Facebook. Hair done, makeup perfect, heels a little too high for a factory break room. And in her hand is a manila folder. Not a purse. Not a gift bag. Not a card. A manila folder. I knew. Before she took a single step toward me, I knew. She walks straight up to me. Doesn't say hi. Doesn't kiss my cheek. Doesn't even look at the cake. She holds the folder up like a game show model presenting today's big prize. Rick, she says, loud enough for half the room to hear. These are your divorce papers. You could feel the air suck out of that room. Conversations died mid-sentence. Plastic forks froze halfway to mouths. Somewhere, a soda can stop fizzing out of respect. I took the folder. Opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her name, my name. Case number. Her signature already on page 4, dated 3 days ago. Property division. Spousal support. Retirement accounts. The house. All neatly bullet-pointed like a grocery list. She'd clearly spent weeks, maybe months, planning this. Meeting with a lawyer. Gathering numbers. Getting everything lined up so she could make her big, dramatic exit. I didn't feel shock. That was interesting. You'd think I would. Theoretically, that's a big moment, right? But honestly? I just felt tired. Like someone added one more thing to my to-do list. Got a pen? I asked. She blinked like that wasn't the reaction she'd rehearsed in her head. Then she reached into her purse and handed me a nice click pen, the kind you pretend you didn't steal from work. I flipped through, signed every line that needed my name. Didn't ask questions. Didn't argue. Didn't even pretend to read it. I already knew the important things I needed to know, and she had no idea I knew them. When I was done, I closed the folder, held it out to her, then leaned in close enough that only she could hear me. You have no idea what you just did to yourself. I said it calm. No anger. No drama. Just a simple fact. She went pale. The kind of pale that says some tiny survival instinct in the back of her brain finally woke up and whispered, "Oh." I turned away from her and looked at Nolan. You were saying something about the carburetor? That's when I heard it. Clapping. Slow, sarcastic clapping. I turned toward the doorway. Tiffany. 18, perfectly done makeup, that little smirk she'd perfected in private school hallways, standing there with her arms crossed, clapping like she just watched her favorite villain deliver a killer line on TV. Grace tucked the folder under her arm and walked out without another word. Tiffany followed her, still smirking, never even looking at me. The door closed. The room stayed frozen for about 10 seconds. Then Nolan cleared his throat. Man, he said quietly, that was cold. He wasn't wrong. But they had no idea just how badly that little performance was going to blow up in Grace's face. And the best part? She thought she'd already won. When I left the party that night, plaque in one hand, leftover sheet cake in the other, I walked out feeling strangely calm. Not happy. Not sad. Just steady. Like my brain had quietly decided. All right then, if this is the path, let's walk it. I drove home to the house I'd bought with my dad's inheritance. The house that was legally, though Grace seemed to have forgotten, mine. Just mine. Title, deed, taxes, everything. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Inside, most of her clothes were gone. Half the bathroom stuff was missing. She'd taken her grandmother's china and the fancy coffee maker I never liked anyway. Left the furniture. Probably too heavy. I sat on the couch, looked around the quiet living room, and waited for the wave of heartbreak to hit. It never did. Instead, my phone buzzed. Neil. Maria's freaking out. You good? Me. I'm great. Truth was, I felt lighter than I had in years. Maybe decades. The first week after the retirement party? Silence. Grace didn't call. Tiffany didn't call. Paige certainly didn't call, though I half expected a manifesto text about the sisterhood at some point. On Tuesday, I went to the bank. Met with Michelle, a banker who handled divorces like she was handing out parking passes. How much would you like to transfer from your joint account? She asked. Half, I said. She typed. Your half is $4,600. Perfect. Grace probably thought there was 20 grand in there. Grace thought a lot of things. Grace was wrong about most of them. Then came the lawyer. His office was above a bagel shop that smelled like toasted sesame seeds and divorce settlements. His name was Martin. Gray hair. Calm eyes. The kind of guy who's seen enough marital warfare to eat stress for breakfast. He flipped through the papers Grace served me, started chuckling before he even got halfway. She wants $2,500 a month in spousal support? He said, shaking his head. Yes. And she's claiming the house is marital property? Yes. She thinks you have $110,000 in equity? She thinks a lot of things. When I told him the house was paid off, fully, recently, in my name only, the man actually laughed. Oh, she's going to lose her mind, he said. Then we went through everything she didn't know. My pension rollover into an IRA. The savings she'd never tracked. The truck, paid off and titled to me. Tiffany's Mazda, also titled to me, despite what Tiffany believed. By the time we were done, Martin sat back and exhaled like he just watched a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat. She really thought she was walking away with half. She thought she was walking away with half and a parade, I said. That night, Tiffany called. Now, here's the thing about 18-year-olds. They think phones are megaphones for declaring their needs. Dad, Mom needs help finding an apartment, she said. I bet she does. She's staying with Paige and it's awkward. Not my problem. You need to help her. No, Tiffany. I don't. She called me petty. I reminded her she clapped at my divorce announcement like she was cheering at WrestleMania. Then she said something that actually made me laugh out loud. You're supposed to be the mature one. Ah, yes. The maturity lecture from the teenager who once cried because we bought the wrong almond milk. Well, I said, cutting into a steak, if I'm so immature, maybe I should start eating dessert before dinner. How's that sound? She hung up. 5 minutes later, Neil called to say Maria was mad at me for not supporting Grace emotionally. She served me divorce papers at my retirement party, Neil. Yeah, well, Maria says that was her way of expressing her truth. My truth is that I'm hanging up. Week 2, the universe handed me a gift on silver platter. Tiffany had left her laptop at the house when she moved out with Grace. It was open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, I'm almost technologically allergic, but the screen was lit, and right there was a text conversation. Grace. And someone named Alan. Alan. With a heart emoji next to his name. Very professional for a married woman. I scrolled up. For 3 months' worth of messages. And oh, it was a buffet. Alan. Once the house sells and you get your half, we'll have close to $80,000 to start with. Grace. He has no idea. He thinks everything is fine. So clueless. Alan. Can't wait to start our life together. Grace. I'm waiting for the perfect moment to make it public so he can't argue. I took pictures of everything. Sent them to Martin. His response? Well, this just turned into a shutout. But the best moment came the next day at the grocery store. Produce aisle. Avocado display. Page. Cart full of kale she probably didn't even like. Smirk ready. That took courage for Grace to serve you papers like that, she said. I picked up an avocado, squeezed it. Yeah, I said. Her boyfriend must have been real proud. Paige turned white like someone unplugged her. What boyfriend? Oh, I said. His name's Alan. Heart emoji in her phone. Been planning their future with my money. She grabbed her cart and fled like the sprinklers were turning on. By Friday, Martin filed our official response. 14 pages of factual reality and attached screenshots of Grace's entire new life with Alan. I read the packet twice. Then I poured myself a drink and toasted to reality. Grace wanted a movie moment at my retirement party. Now she was about to get the third act twist she never saw coming. The midpoint, the moment everything tilts, didn't arrive with shouting or fireworks. It arrived with a car that wouldn't start, and an 18-year-old discovering, for the first time in her life, that consequences are real. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Week 3 began with Grace's lawyer calling me. Her name was Nain, and she spoke like someone who wears turtlenecks in July and has never laughed at a joke in her life. Mr. Carver, my client is eager to finalize the settlement. We'd prefer to move quickly. I said. I bet you would. And hung up. Martin filed our response that Friday, complete with the texts of Grace's emotional poetry with Alan the abs enthusiast. My favorite exhibit was the one where she calculated the imaginary $80,000 she would get when she sold my house. The house she had never been on the title of. Ever. That weekend, the universe gifted me another scene, Paige, again, in the produce aisle, this time looking like someone had told her gluten was sentient. She tried to shame me. You're being very cold about the house, she said. It's almost like I paid for the house, I said. Then I told her about Alan. She turned so pale she looked like she'd been cast in a vampire drama. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure, Paige, I said. Tell Alan I said hi. Tell him he should probably get a second job since that $80,000 dream fund evaporated. She fled. Again. Produce aisle 2. Page 0. But the real turning point came from Tiffany. See, one thing about my daughter, she inherited Grace's entitlement, but none of Grace's subtlety. Which is how, early one morning, she showed up at my house demanding the spare key to the Mazda. Dad, seriously, I need it for work and school. She barged past me like the place was a target, and she was late for her shift. "It's my car," she said. "It's my car," I corrected. "I just let you use it." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought I might hear a clicking noise. "Oh my God, are you really doing this?" I pointed out that yes, I was really doing this. Also that she clapped at my public humiliation, which had earned her a long, scenic tour of Actions Have Consequences National Park. Then she ran outside, slid into the driver's seat, and turned the key. Click. Silence. Click. Silence. She stomped back in. "What did you do to my car?" "I removed the battery," I said. "From my car." She threatened to call her mom. I wished her luck. 5 minutes later, Grace called in full shriek mode. "You can't disable Tiffany's car." "I disabled my car," I said. "She needs it. She needs a job more." "You're being unreasonable." "You served me divorce papers at my retirement party." "That was symbolic." "That was stupid." She hung up on me. 10 minutes later, Tiffany called back, not shrieking this time. Crying. "Dad, please. I'm sorry. I need the car." I told her to come over the next day and we'd talk. She arrived looking like the universe had finally slapped some sense into her. We sat in the living room. "Why am I in this situation?" she asked. "That's a great question," I said. And for once, she listened. I told her the truth. Her mother planned this divorce for months. She had a boyfriend. She and Alan openly discussed taking my money. Tiffany took sides without knowing anything. She looked stunned. "She has a boyfriend?" "Yep. Alan. Loves gym selfies. Hates employment." Tiffany stared at the floor. Finally muttered, "I didn't know." "No kidding." Then I laid down the deal. If she wanted the Mazda, she'd pay her own insurance. If she wanted the emergency credit card, she'd pay her own charges. If she wanted help with college, she'd start acting like someone who understood basic respect. She didn't love it. But she nodded. For the first time in years, she nodded. And then came the moment that hit Grace like a meteor. I told Martin I wanted to legally reclaim Tiffany's Mazda. "It's your property," he said. "She can use it," I replied. "But if Grace wants to turn her against me, she can start learning how adulthood actually works." Martin smiled like a man watching a chess game unfold exactly as predicted. Because the truth was becoming painfully clear for Grace. She hadn't just miscalculated her money. She'd miscalculated her leverage. She'd lost her golden goose. She'd lost her narrative. She'd lost the daughter she thought she could weaponize. And she was about to lose something even bigger. The courtroom. The judge. The moment everything shifted permanently. But that comes next. The day Grace finally showed up at my house in person, she wasn't wearing the confident black dress from the retirement party. She wasn't glowing with page-fueled self-righteousness. She wasn't even pretending to have the upper hand. She looked like someone who had Googled cheap apartments near me one too many times. It started with the sound of a car door slamming. I was on the porch replacing weather stripping when a little beige sedan I didn't recognize pulled up. Paige was driving. Grace stepped out, adjusting her shirt like she was bracing for impact. I kept working. Nothing gets under someone's skin like pretending they're background noise. "Rick," she said as she approached. I said nothing. Tightened a screw. Adjusted the rubber seal. "We need to talk about your response." I looked up. "Martin's filing? Which part?" "You attached my private messages. They were relevant to the divorce. That was an invasion. Grace, you were planning a whole new life using my money. In writing. With heart emojis." She flinched. Paige hovered by the car, visibly uncomfortable, like she just realized supporting Grace was less empowering, and more, watching a slow-motion implosion. Grace stepped up 2 stairs toward me. "I lived in that house for 19 years. She said. "You did," I agreed. I deserve half. You deserve what the law says you deserve, I corrected. And the deed has been in my name since 2001. She opened her mouth, closed it, reopened it like a glitchy robot. I contributed to the marriage, she snapped. You worked 20 hours a week and spent your paycheck on craft supplies, I said. Meanwhile, I worked 60-hour weeks and paid every bill. Red. Her face went red. Nain says a judge can still award me part of the house. Then Nain can show her judge the deed, the payment records, and your text messages with Alan. Her eyes widened at the name. So you know about him. Everyone knows about him at this point, I said. Your planning wasn't subtle. Paige stepped in weakly. Grace didn't do anything wrong, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Tell Alan I said congrats on the new job he'll need. Divorce money dried up. Paige looked like she wanted to sink into the pavement. Grace looked like she wanted to cry, but not out of guilt. Out of realization. I found an apartment, she said quietly. They want $5,000 to move in. Good luck. I don't have $5,000. You have $4,600 from the joint account. I need that for food and bills. Not my problem, I said. That's what you signed up for. Tears spilled over then. This isn't how it was supposed to go. How was it supposed to go? I asked. You take my money, move in with your gym boyfriend, live happily ever after? She swallowed hard. I thought you'd. I don't know, be kinder about it. You served me divorce papers at my retirement party. That was symbolic. No, I said. It was stupid. Paige tugged at Grace's sleeve. Let's go. He's not going to help. Grace stayed frozen, one step below me. What am I supposed to do? Figure it out, I said. Like the rest of us. You've become cruel. No, I said. I stopped enabling you. Paige finally managed to pull her away. At the car, Grace turned one last time. You're going to regret this. I doubt it, I said. They drove off. I'd barely finished my coffee that evening when Martin called. His voice was brisk, businesslike, but with an unmistakable undertone of amusement. Grace's attorney just filed an emergency motion, he said. I smiled. For temporary support? Bingo. Hearing is Tuesday at 2. Judge is McAllister. Oh, that's perfect, he added. Why? McAllister hates nonsense. This'll be quick. And he was right. When Tuesday came, I walked into that courtroom with a folder, a pen, and the calm confidence of a man whose opponent had accidentally handed him dynamite. The hearing lasted 35 minutes. No exaggeration, 35 minutes. Nain stood up and delivered the usual performance. Grace had no income. Grace had nowhere to live. Grace sacrificed her career. Grace desperately needed temporary support. The judge listened politely. Then Martin stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get dramatic. He didn't shame Grace. He simply laid out facts. Grace chose part-time work for decades. Grace took $4,600 already. Grace was fully capable of working full-time. Grace had planned the divorce months in advance. Grace had a boyfriend she was planning her new life with. Grace explicitly discussed using the divorce settlement to bankroll that new life. Then Martin slid the copies of her texts to the judge. Reading glasses went on. Eyebrows went up. A small, unimpressed sigh escaped the judge like she'd seen this exact scam 12 times this month. She addressed Grace directly. Mrs. Carver, were you planning this divorce while still living in the marital home? Grace mumbled something that sounded like, I didn't. Are you physically capable of full-time employment? Yes, but. No, but. Yes or no? Yes. The judge closed the folder. Motion for temporary support denied. We will proceed with asset division based on Mr. Carver's filing. Bang. Next case. Grace looked like someone unplugged her soul. Outside the courthouse, she stood on the steps staring into nothing. Her lawyer was already on the phone, probably scheduling another hearing for another client who hadn't blown up their own case. Martin caught up with me at my truck. "Well," he said, "that was a spectacular implosion." Then he grinned. "By the way, rumor is your ex tried showing up at Alan's gym." "Oh? Yeah. Apparently he blocked her everywhere and quit the next day. Gym guys, great biceps, terrible loyalty." On the drive home, it hit me. The turning point had officially come and gone. This wasn't just going well for me. Grace's entire plan had collapsed in front of a judge. And she still hadn't hit rock bottom. Not even close. 2 weeks after the courtroom implosion, Grace's perfect little scheme officially began to rot from the inside out. And the funny part? I didn't have to lift a finger. Her own decisions did all the heavy lifting. It started with the settlement offer. Nain called Martin, trying to salvage what was left of the Titanic. Grace wanted the remaining joint account balance, her car, her personal belongings, and $3,500 from my savings. No house. No monthly support. No claim to my retirement. Martin called me, amused. "She's playing humble now," he said. "She's playing desperate," I corrected. "Thoughts?" "Counter with $2,000 one-time payment," I said. "She won't like that. She can take it to trial." He laughed, hung up, and called back an hour later. She accepted. Grace signed the settlement crying, according to Martin's paralegal, who absolutely did not need to volunteer that detail, but bless her for doing so. The divorce was finalized that Thursday morning. I didn't attend. No point. No ceremony. Just paperwork confirming what had already been obvious for months. Grace had played a stupid game and won the world's saddest consolation prize. The universe didn't even wait long to add insult to injury. That night Tiffany texted me. "Mom is struggling. She got a job at Target. Her apartment isn't great." I stared at the message, then typed back. She made her choices. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Returned. Then she asked if we could have dinner sometime. Sure. Saturday. I'll grill. And that was that. Now here's where things got interesting. Tiffany was changing. Slowly, awkwardly, but genuinely. It started with her insurance payments. She made them on time. Every month. When the credit card bill came, she paid it. When she asked for help budgeting, I helped. But I didn't hand her money, I handed her information. She didn't love it. But she learned. One Saturday she came early and sat on the workbench in my garage while I was elbows deep in the truck engine. "Mom's dating again," she said. "That was fast. Different guy. Older. Has money. Good for her." She picked at a rag, sighed. "She asked me for money for a new apartment deposit. I didn't look up from the wrench. And?" I said no. I tightened a bolt. "Smart. She's mad at me. She'll live." Tiffany hesitated. "I've been thinking about everything you said. About choices. Consequences. That's life," I said. "Yeah, but you were right. I was a brat. For years." I put the wrench down and looked at her. "I let it happen. That part's on me." "But you stopped," she said. "And it sucked. But I needed it. We didn't hug. We're not a hugging family. But the silence after that was the good kind." Later that night, over burgers on the back porch, she told me her plans. Community college. Business classes. Maybe transferring later. Working while studying. Saving money. A far cry from the girl who once insisted she needed a $200 backpack. I was proud. Didn't say it. But I was. 3 months after the divorce, Nolan finally finished his Craigslist boat and took me out on the lake. We didn't catch a thing. Didn't care. "You doing okay?" he asked from behind his cooler. "I'm doing better than okay." Heard your ex is having a hard time. I've heard that too. You feel bad about it? I thought for a moment. No. She made her choices. I'm just living with mine. Nolan nodded. Good answer. For months after the divorce, I ran into Grace at the grocery store. Frozen foods aisle. She was loading budget microwave meals into her cart like someone stocking up for a very sad blizzard. She saw me before I could turn away. Rick. We stood there among the chicken nuggets and steamable vegetables. You look good, she said. I am good. Tiffany tells me you have dinner every other week. We do. That's good. She needs stability. She looked down at her cart. I'm doing okay too, she said. Job at Target isn't great, but it pays the bills. And I'm seeing someone. Good for you. His name's Bradley. He's helping me look at better apartments. Then I hope it works out. She nodded, then looked up. I was wrong about a lot of things. About the money. The house. How the divorce would go. I thought you'd just give me whatever I wanted. You always did, she added quietly. Before you served me papers at my retirement party. I reminded her. She winced. I know. I'm sorry for that. Not for the divorce. But for how I did it. I appreciate that, I said. Are we okay? I shook my head gently. We're not enemies. But we're not anything else either. That's the best we can do. She gave a sad little smile. Yeah. Probably is. I walked away. Didn't look back. Back home, I grilled myself a steak, sat on the back porch, and watched the sun go down behind the maple tree. I'd spent 28 years at Kellerman Printing building a life. Now I was building a new one, quiet, steady mine. No drama. No manipulation. No emotional landmines. Just peace. And the dawning realization that Grace had destroyed her marriage at the exact moment she stood to gain the most from it. Because she didn't understand one simple truth. You don't win by burning down the house you live in. She lit the match. I walked out with the deed. The thing about peace, real, quiet, steady peace, is that once you get a taste of it, you start to realize how loud your life used to be. How much energy you spent putting out emotional fires you didn't set. How many years you lived on alert without ever noticing it. So when things finally calmed down, I noticed everything. The silence. The clean counters. The mail that didn't include surprise boutique receipts. The bank alerts that didn't involve unauthorized Sephora emergency. Life got boring in the best possible way. But the story wasn't done yet, because people like Grace don't simply exit stage left. They boomerang. They circle back. They hit the same wall repeatedly, convinced it'll eventually move if they glare at it hard enough. Still, the next few months were steady. Tiffany kept coming to dinner every other Saturday. No drama. No performative sighing. Just a kid figuring out adulthood one small stumble at a time. One night she arrived early again. I was outside staining a new shelf for the garage. She hopped up on the workbench like she lived there. Dad, she said, I think Mom's in another fantasy world. Only one? I asked. She snorted, the way Grace used to, but without the bitterness. She met this new guy. Bradley. I nodded. She mentioned him. He's nice. Like too nice. Mom's already talking about moving in with him. How long have they been dating? 3 weeks. That tracked. Grace could build a whole imaginary future with a man based on the way he pronounced latte. Tiffany swung her feet. She asked if I could help her with money again. And what did you say? No. I kept brushing varnish onto the wood. Good. She got mad. Tiffany said. She'll get over it. I think she thought I'd be her automatic safety net. I set the brush down. She spent years believing people would fix things for her. I contributed to that. So did you. But you're learning. She's not. Tiffany nodded. It hit me then, this kid wasn't just growing up. She was unlearning a script she'd been fed her whole life. We grilled chicken, talked college schedules, saving money. It felt like life. Real life. A couple months later, Nolan invited me out on the lake again. He cracked open a soda and stretched his legs. "You ever miss it?" he asked. "Miss what?" "Being married." I thought about it longer than he expected. "I miss the idea of it," I said. "Not the reality I had." He nodded like he'd been waiting for me to catch up to that sentence. Then he grinned. "Plus, you get to fish on Sundays now." "True," I said. "And no one's reminding me about chores." But the Grace portion of this story? It wasn't fully over. Not yet. Just dormant. For months after the divorce was final, I ran into her again at the grocery store. Not dramatic this time. No folder. No makeup. No page lurking in the background. She looked tired. Softened. Smaller somehow. She told me about Target, about the apartment with peeling paint, about Bradley being supportive, though the way she said it made it sound like she was trying to sell herself the idea. Then she said something honest, maybe the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. "I thought you'd cave. I thought you'd just give me whatever I asked for. Because you always did." If that wasn't a thesis statement for our entire marriage, I don't know what was. I didn't yell. Didn't gloat. Didn't lecture. Just said, "Before you humiliated me in front of my coworkers, maybe." She nodded, accepted it, and whispered an apology for the party. Not the divorce. Just the spectacle. And that was enough. Not forgiveness, just closure. A quiet door closing without a slam. When I got home that night, I grilled another steak, sat on the back porch, and let the evening settle around me. For the first time in 20 years, my life was mine again. No drama. No manipulation. No frantic emotional cleanup. Just steak, quiet, the creak of the old maple in the backyard. But peace has a weird way of shining light on the things you ignored for years. Things like, what did I want now? Who was I outside of being a husband, a dad, a walking ATM, a buffer for someone else's insecurities? It was a nice problem to have. A luxury even. To rebuild instead of rebuild around someone. To breathe without bracing. To enjoy life without apologizing for it. But the universe wasn't done tying up loose ends. Grace had walked into a wall. Next, she was going to walk into the truth. About her future. About her boyfriend. And about how badly she'd misunderstood the kind of man I actually am. We weren't at the finale yet. But the setup? It was falling into place. Hi again. Rick here. And here's the truth in the shortest way I can put it. Grace thought she detonated my life at that retirement party. Instead, she freed it. Tiffany grew up. I got my peace back. Grace got exactly what she earned. And me? I sit on my porch at sunset, steak on the grill, mortgage paid, quiet house, steady heart. She thought she ended my story. She only ended her version of it.